let's get into it, man. Okay, so I definitely like the poem. I like how it was delivered. You know what I mean? And one of the things that we were just talking about before we started was, him reading the poem off of his phone. You know what I mean? And it's been a lot of, talk about, about how, like, if you're going to do poetry, you got to do it off of memorization. You know what I mean? But Cypher, let's get to that right quick. So, poets read, poets or spoken word artists reading their pieces off of a piece of paper or phone, is that a no-no?
I think it depends on how people view poetry. Really, I mean, I don't believe it's taboo at all.
Right.
It's I feel like if it's like I said this, and I've said this before, if you read a trash poem off your phone or memorize a trash poem, is it still trash? Does that change the dynamics of the poem?
Mm-hmm.
No. It's still the same poem.
Right.
So my thing is, if there's a deep message in a poem, whether you memorize it or you read it, if it's still spat in the same way, said in the same way, with the same emotion, all that, the performance is still the same.
Mm-hmm.
Is it still the same poem? Reading it off a phone don't make a poem trash.
I agree.
A trash poem makes a trash poem trash.
Right, I heard some too.
Yeah, and yes, we have. Now, I've heard some trash poems off the top. I've heard some garbage, and these are people who are supposed to be top tier poets.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they're top tier poets. I don't even consistently write poetry the way I should, or do spoken word the way I should, and I feel like I could have killed you in like 5 seconds reading off a phone.
Mm-hmm.
And that's sad. That's sad. But there are poetry snobs who actually believe that actually is more top tier than having a dope poem. Like, that makes no sense to me.
I agree with you.
You're trash, you're trash. It doesn't matter which. It is what it is.
I agree with you. You know what I mean? Like, for me, I've seen, because I write a lot of poetry as of like, you can tell, but, I've seen poems read the poetry off of notebooks and on phones, and it's the same reaction. They get the same standing ovation and or claps if they had spit that poem off of the top or on memory. You know what I mean? So it's like, when it comes to like spoken word or like poetry, you can't really say someone is not really a poet or a spoken word artist because they read their poems off of a piece of paper and or a phone. You know what I mean? That's my opinion. You know what I mean? Some may say different, but I'm gonna say how I feel about it. You know what I mean? Craig, like, what do you feel?
I think what makes a poem trash is based on presentation. I think that
Agreed.
The reason people down reading poetry off of a phone or a notebook or whatever, they're down it because of the distraction that a person can have where when they're reading here or they want to read down here, which means that when it comes to projecting their piece or how they deliver their piece, it's definitely impacted in a sense, because now the thought that should be emphasized doesn't land right because the person is reading the piece. Or let's say if a person was to give the piece from memory, you can always have a brain freeze, and all of a sudden that one line that was supposed to be an important line, all of a sudden it's lost in translation, which means that momentarily you could lose the crowd. And especially if you're giving a piece that's so dope that people are just waiting for more and want to hear more, and all of a sudden you just have that brain freeze that slows everything down. I think sometimes that can be a problem too. But whether or not a piece is trash, honestly is based on delivery. And I've heard great pieces that were really simple, but because of how they delivered the piece, it was a powerful piece because the message is clear. And there's so many different things that I think people look at to judge whether or not a piece is trash or not. But one of the things I pay attention to is not only just clarity in your words and such, but is the message clear enough to where I know what your piece is saying? Because sometimes people like to give prefaces or what have you, or give little backstories before they start the piece, and that's cool and all. But you got to read the room, because a lot of times if you're giving this little backstory, the backstory could be a prelude to, oh, my piece may not be clear, my message may not be clear. Or some people like to do it to entertain, or say, oh, here's the motivation behind my piece. It's just about, it's little moving parts to me that help me determine whether or not a piece is trash or not.
Gotcha.
It's not just, and that's why I say delivery is the main thing, but it's also presentation. So presentation and delivery are so similar to each other that I'm actually thinking that there's a way to separate them.